Guruji, it's always a delight participating in India Today conclaves. This is the second time that I have come here. But I must say at the outset that I wasn't very comfortable with the subject that you chose for me today. और आपने अभी अभी बहुत बार दूल्हा, ब्राइड ग्रूम ये सब जो कहा है और कहा है कि मैं ब्राइड ग्रूम बनने वाला हूँ या बन गया हूँ, तो आप अगर ब्राइड ग्रूम से ही गुणों के बारे में पूछने लगे तो उनको कैसा लगेगा? Though I believe that if the question had been a kind of a comparison between the BJP and the Congress, that would not have been uncomfortable. But to say that how the BJP's leadership differs from that of the Congress. If you had asked me how the economic vision, perspective of the BJP differs from that of the Congress, how does your party's approach to the problems of security differ from those of the Congress? And all such questions which you have in the course of your introduction mentioned, that would not have been a problem at all. But when you talk of leadership of the two parties, and that too in the context of my having been named the leader of the party for the next elections. Therefore, I did not feel unhappy that you had started with your Sidi Baat. I thought that that would make it even more clear why the question posed to me is somewhat uncomfortable. But I can tell you that it's not merely my party, but parties which have a leadership which doesn't belong to the pre-1947 period. Unka problem hai ek. Here in India, politics has been somewhat different from what it has been in other democracies of the world. Here in India, prior to 1947, politics was not an occupation, was not a profession. It was a mission. It was related to the fact that India was under foreign yoke. And those who came to public life were inspired mainly by this desire to liberate the country from foreign thraldom. And that motivated everyone. After 1947, what has happened? We've seen before our own eyes the kind of degeneration that has crept into politics. I'll talk about it later, but at the moment, I would only say that I would not deny that leadership is a very important factor. And so, if we talk about leadership, it's a very important facet of politics and political parties. If someone else had been chosen, I'm sure, or it could have been very well expressed. Today, when I look at it, I would say that the first and foremost difference between the Congress party and the BJP, so far as leadership is concerned, is what you yourself have in a way indicated. That this is a democratic party in which the persons who come to the post of leader or leadership, they are from the common people who support that party. It's not dynastic leadership. That's the first and foremost difference between the Congress and the BJP leadership. In the Congress party, leadership, there is reservation. for members of a particular dynasty at the top slot. No one else can. Gradually it has come to that. And I sometimes feel depressed to see how brazenly an entire party has been appropriated and made into a family fiefdom. And how slavishly congressmen have resigned themselves to this appropriation. It is one of the saddest developments of Indian political evolution. It could not have been thought of in the early years, could not have been. But gradually it is accepted. I remember during the emergency, there used to be a lot of debate on the issue of basic structure of the Constitution and how the then Congress expressed its unhappiness with the Keshavanand Bharati judgment, which said that Parliament can amend any provision of the Constitution, but no amendment could be of a nature which undermines the basic structure of the Constitution. And that basic structure is democracy. That basic structure is secularism. That basic structure is independence of the judiciary, and all such facets of the Constitution. And they said that these basic structures cannot be altered. It was altered during the emergency. And our biggest quarrel during the emergency was that how can you undermine a constitution in this manner as you have done by the 42nd Amendment? We were behind bars at that time. My senior colleague Vajpayee ji, a person like Jaiprakash Narayan, a person like Morarji Desai, a person like Chandrasekhar, patriots of the highest order, and all of them put behind bars because you are a threat to nation security. And the Constitution is amendment to provide that so-and-so, 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 the Prime Minister, the President of the country, the Vice President of the country, and such 3 or 4 leaders of the government, they can never be tried for anything. Any offense they may have committed in the past or any offense they may commit in the future, there can be no trial, they cannot be taken to task. Oh, England में तो खाली इतना ही कहा, the Queen can do no wrong, the King can do no wrong. यहाँ तो the President, the Vice President, the Prime Minister, they can never do any wrong. It was amazing. And all this was sought to be done in a constitutional manner. Basic structure altered here. I want to tell you that today, without formally changing the constitution of the Congress party, they have destroyed the basic structure of the Congress constitution. Who could conceive this? And it's not surprising that those who had the arrogance to tamper with the nation's constitution for the sake of power, tampering with the tradition of leadership selection within one's own party, is a very small matter indeed for them. How can they be bothered about it? But the country which believes in democracy should be bothered about it, should be concerned about it. So far as the BJP is concerned, we have before us role models like Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee, starting with him, an eminent educationist, a person who had been in public life before he launched the Janasangh, because my political yatra, as well as of those of my colleagues in the BJP, started not with the BJP in 1980, but it actually started with the Janasangh in 1951. And such an eminent person that even though the first cabinet of Pandit Nehru of independent India was presumed to be a Congress cabinet, and Dr. Mukherjee and Dr. Ambedkar Both were lifelong critics of the Congress party. It was Mahatma Gandhi who advised Pandit Nehru to include these two luminaries in his cabinet. And they were included. And his performance as the first industries minister of independent India was outstanding. I'm referring to this because he started the Janasangh because he differed with his prime minister on the question of handling of East Pakistan and said it's our commitment to the Hindus of East Pakistan that even after partition, their rights would be safeguarded. He differed with Pandit Nehru on the issue of Kashmir. These were the two main differences he had with Kashmir, with Pandit Nehru. And he quit the government. He quit the government and launched the Bharatiya Janasangh shortly before the first general elections came. And many of us, we have been associated with that party since then. What a parliamentarian he was. I saw him only from the press gallery at that time. I was myself working in Rajasthan. And I am always reminded that in the first Parliament of independent India, there were two Mukherjees who were the best speakers, outstanding. One was Dr. Shama Prasad Mukherjee, and the other was Hiren Mukherjee. One belonging to the party which I have had the privilege of belonging, and the other belonging to the CPI. And since then, I have had great admiration and respect for Hiren Mukherjee. Not merely because of his oratorical skills, but because of his conviction, his commitment, and the fact that despite his association with the CPI, he always stood out as an outstanding patriot. And I remember once when there was the question of whom to set up as the opposition candidate for presidency. And in the all-party meeting, his name was proposed, Hiren Mukherjee's name. I, on behalf of the Janasangh, I said, I readily accept it. I have no objection. Everyone was surprised. Ki kya ho gaya hai? And within my own party, some people did complain. What happened to Advani? That he's accepting a CPI man as a candidate for presidency. I did accept. I knew him personally and I highly respected him. Of course, it's a different matter that when his nominations were to be filed, it was found that his name was not in the electoral roll. So he could not be nominated. And then the all-party meeting stood again, where I proposed the name of Justice Khanna. And his name was accepted. Everyone accepted his name. But this is incidental, that Dr. Shama Prasad Mukherjee and Hiren Mukherjee were the best speakers in that Lok Sabha. What is more important is that in the first plenary session of the Bharatiya Janasangh at Kanpur in 1953, he identified that in this situation, when India has been partitioned, and what remains of India, it is our duty to see that it becomes united, integrated, as one piece. And it is not what very many scholars have always addressed India as, that it is a conglomeration of several nations. It's a conglomeration, all that. It's one nation, and that nation is there, so let us strengthen that concept. The constitution makers, even while deciding about federalism, tried to strengthen that. I can quote Dr. Ambedkar when he said that why we have called it a union of states, in which he says that even though we have called it a union of states, we regard this country as one country. And therefore it is that for changing the boundaries of a state, Article 3 provides that this will not be an amendment of the Constitution. It will need a simple majority. And States Reorganization Commission, or the states that we created when we were in power, or the various states that have been created in the Northeast. These have been created without changing the constitution as such. It's because we believe that India is one nation. And at that time, Dr. Mukherjee said, if India is one nation, how come that I cannot go to Jammu and Kashmir? I cannot go there without a permit? How come that the tricolor can fly in New Delhi, but the tricolor cannot fly beyond Pathankot? In Jammu and Kashmir, it cannot fly. How come that the Indian president has no authority over Jammu and Kashmir? How come that the Supreme Court has no authority over Jammu and Kashmir? How come that the Controller and Auditor General, the Election Commission, they have no authority over Jammu and Kashmir? And he gave a resounding slogan to the country and to the party workers. He said, "Ek desh mein do vidhan, ek desh mein do pradhan, ek desh mein do nishan, nahi chalenge, nahi chalenge." And not only gave that slogan, but called upon the session there, plenary session, all of us, let us undertake our first agitation in independent India on this issue for the sake of Jammu Kashmir's complete integration with India. And he led that agitation. He crossed the Pathankot bridge without a permit. The policemen arrested him there. He was imprisoned, and he was not just incarcerated, he paid with his own life. He died in prison. It's only after that that the permit system was abolished. It's only after that that the President's authority, the Election Commission's authority, the Supreme Court's authority, the authority of the Comptroller and Auditor General of India, they were all extended to Jammu and Kashmir. For the first time, the tricolor flew in Jammu and Kashmir after his martyrdom. I remember only last year, I had occasion to reenact that entire story and hold a rally just beyond Pathankot Bridge across the border to Jammu and Kashmir, where I remember honoring a widow who had died whose husband had died hoisting a tricolor at that place, and he had been shot dead by the police of Jammu and Kashmir police. That how dare you hoist a tricolor here? This is the beginning. This is the kind of leader who has been our first role model. And immediately after that came a person whom I have always held, even in the book that has been referred to by Prabhu. If I have said that if there is any person who has influenced my thinking, my nature, my life the most, it is Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay. Never ever aspired for power. Not just power, but he would shun his name appearing in the newspapers. He would avoid that. I used to be a journalist those days when I first came in contact with him. I used to be in the News Weekly organizer, and he used to write a political diary for us every week. It used to deal with some or the other topical subject. One day I said to him, Panditji, you call this a political diary. It's very well written. It's very popular with the readers. But suppose, for instance, you make it a diary. Suppose, for instance, after all, you travel so much and you meet so much, people so much, you interact with so many people in the country. If you were to write a diary, its readability would increase considerably. So, as a journalist myself, I thought, if he were to write that, what he slightly said, "Mujhe theek nahi lagta." I pressed it. He said, all right, I'll try it. And he wrote 2 pieces. He had gone to the Agra University to address them. He had interaction with the Vice Chancellor there. He wrote about that, and one more. And again, then he spoke to me, he said, Lal, mujhse nahi hota, main nahi bol sakta. No other reason I could understand except that he did not like writing about himself. I have written about myself just now, the book that I have written. He was a remarkable person, outstanding really, both in terms of intellectual ability, in terms of character, in terms of his dedication, and in terms of his ability to mobilize cadres for the party and inspire them and promote them. And of course, the third person all of you know, who I would say has been the third role model for our party cadres. A person who led a coalition comprising at one point of time nearly 24 political parties, and such a stable manner, 6 years. शुरू में हमको संदेह लगता था. He spoke about my romancing with this and that and all that. I'll come to that also, because I believe that the BJP's achievement today has been because of several factors. The ability to identify the right agenda for discussion. Second factor, from the very beginning, consciously to demolish the hegemony of the Congress party. The kind of hegemony the Congress party has enjoyed for nearly 4.5 decades. We destroyed it, and consciously destroyed it. Not many of you may be aware that he talked about my alliance with the ADMK or with BSP or with Trinamool. But it was in 1967 that my party had an alliance with the Communist Party. And even before that, in 1958, in the Corporation of Delhi, we had an alliance with the Communist Party. And I have mentioned all this. In 1967, when we had an alliance with the Communist Party, and SVD governments were formed in Bihar, in Madhya Pradesh, in Uttar Pradesh. SVD would mean Sanyukta Vidhayak Dal. The SVD government in Bihar, as well as the one in Punjab, had a communist member also. And immediately after that, in 1967, December, we had a plenary session of the party in Calicut, in Kerala. The first time that we had a conference in Calicut. And Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay, who for all these years, even though he was the leader of the party in all respects, he never accepted to be president. He was persuaded to become president that year. He became president. And in that debate, there were members of the party who attacked Pandit Deen Dayal Upadhyay. What have you done? Communistों के साथ समझौता कर लिया. I remember an outstanding speaker from Punjab. I always remember him. He was one of the public speakers those days, much in demand by the party units. His name was Vishwanathan. He was from Kerala, but his family had settled in Ludhiana. And Vishwanathan spoke that day. And he said, what have you done, Pandit ji? समझौता कर लिया इनके साथ, कम्युनिस्टों के साथ. Do we think that we are going to change them? Never forget, there is a famous saying in Hindi, कि चक्कू खरबूजे पर गिरे या खरबूजा चक्कू पर गिरे, कटेगा तो खरबूजा. And that debate was a very good debate. But even more outstanding and unforgettable was Deen Dayal ji's reply to that entire debate. The essential part of it was something that we have imbibed forever. He said in his reply, apart from say other things, he said, I find it odd that while in social life untouchability is supposed to be evil. In politics, if you do not practice untouchability in respect of this party, that party, then you are supposed to be wrong. And he said, so far as Janasangh is concerned, my advice to all would be, never think in terms of any party participating in democracy as untouchable. You may not join hands with it, but there can be occasions when you two can work together. There can be occasions. And if for the sake of destroying the hegemony of the Congress, you come together, there's nothing wrong in it. Come together, all right, doesn't matter. That's as far back as in 1967, this was the advice he gave us. And I remember very often this particular advice. I remember when our government was formed in 98, Vajpayee ji became the Prime Minister. I was declared the Home Minister. That very evening, Vajpayee ji phones to me, said, Advani ji, Kerala ki khabar mili? मैंने कहा, क्या खबर? तो उन्होंने कहा कि comrade EMS Namboodiripad has passed away. I said, अच्छा. And he said, do you think at tomorrow's funeral and the all-party meeting that has been organized in Thiruvananthapuram, the government should be represented? I said, it certainly should be represented. He was an outstanding leader, outstanding person, and a person who devoted all his life to the welfare of the nation as he believed in it. He was a severe critic of ours. And I said to Vajpayee ji, if you think it's right, I can myself go. I'll go today to Thiruvananthapuram. He said, बहुत अच्छा होगा. And so my first official duty as Home Minister of the country was to go to Thiruvananthapuram to pay homage to EMS Namboodiripad, a severe critic of the Janasangh, of the RSS, of the BJP, everyone, always. That's my first duty that I performed. And there, speaking at that all-party meeting, I always recall what I said. I said, people may not be aware, but I would like to point out that about the same time that EMS Namboodiripad was the Secretary General of the Malabar Congress. I was talking of the pre-1947 period. About the same time that EMS Namboodiripad was General Secretary of the Malabar Congress, the person who has inspired me since my childhood, Dr. Keshav Baliram Hedgewar, the founder of the RSS, he was the General Secretary of the Vidarbha Congress about the same time. Both of them belonging to different ideologies. For them, Congress was only a platform through which the war against the British ruler was to be waged. And they waged it in their own respective manner, with their own respective beliefs. But it was idealism that brought them together. Idealism that India must be a free country. India must be liberated from foreign rule. I have no difficulty with that. I have mentioned all this because I believe that Dr. Mukherjee and Deen Dayal Upadhyay and Atal Bihari Vajpayee are, for all political leaders, for all political parties, exemplars as to what kind of politics we should have. And they did not belong to any big family, any great, they did not have any such inheritance that brought them to that position. They came up to that place by virtue of their service, by virtue of their understanding of issues. I was personally so flabbergasted by Atalji's oratory when I heard him for the first time, that for a long time I could not get over the complex that I developed. I was in Rajasthan those days, and he had come there, and I traveled with him throughout. He would hold the audience spellbound with his speech. And even the most difficult concepts, he could explain to them with wit and humor in a manner that made me feel कि मैं तो कहाँ कुछ नहीं कर सकूँगा, ये कहाँ अटल जी. और फिर when he tried to persuade me to become the president of the party in 1973, मैंने कहा मुझसे नहीं होगा, मैं नहीं कर सकता. उन्होंने कहा पार्लियामेंट में तो बोलते हो. मैंने कहा पार्लियामेंट में बोलना एक चीज़ है और हजारों लोगों के बीच में बोलना, आप जिस प्रकार से बोलते हैं मैं तो नहीं बोल सकता, सवाल ही नहीं. And such leaders of the party we have had, and because of them there has been, very often they say generation next, younger generation, ये वो बहुत अच्छा है. हमारे यहाँ तो इतने लोग हो गए कि एक एक अपने अपने स्टेट में जब वो बन गए, अपने मुख्यमंत्री बन गए, कोई कुछ बन गया, कोई, all of them have acquitted themselves very well. But the most important factor is honesty, credibility. India, it's a democracy. And how is it that today 10 Janapath has become more important than 7 Racecourse Road? This kind of Kremlinization of politics, of Indian polity, it is this that makes me criticize a person whom I have always held with respect. I still hold him in great esteem. But I did say that this is the weakest prime minister India has ever had. Even persons like Deve Gowda or like Chandrasekhar or Inder Kumar Gujral, who did not have a big party with them, a very large party with them, they did not seek permission for everything from the Congress party. They did not. I remember when Chandrasekhar ji was the Prime Minister in 1990, with the outside support of the Congress party. For me, that was important in this respect, that it is because of that development that suddenly I became the leader of the opposition in Lok Sabha, even though I was not the leader of the largest party. The largest party at that time in the Lok Sabha was the Congress party in the opposition. VP Singh had become Prime Minister. And so naturally, Rajiv Gandhi was the leader of the opposition. But when, after the fall of the VP Singh government, Rajiv Gandhi, as Congress president, gave in writing to the President of India that our party has decided to support Chandrasekhar as Prime Minister of the country unconditionally. Immediately, Rabi Ray, the Speaker of the House, he called Rajiv ji and said to him, see what you have done. As a result, I will have to announce tomorrow in the House that Rajiv Gandhi is no longer the leader of the opposition. Having supported the Prime Minister unconditionally and give it in writing to the President, he cannot remain the leader of the opposition. So the leader of the second largest party, which was BJP at that time, of which I was the leader, he will be leader of the opposition. So that made me leader of the opposition. The next day it was announced. And I recall this episode very well because Rajiv ji telephoned to me. Firstly, to compliment me on becoming leader of the opposition. And secondly, to make a suggestion. He said, Advani, I have a suggestion to make. I said, what? He said, would you be willing to shift your residence from your Pandara Park residence to 10 Janapath? And so that 10 Janapath becomes the permanent residence of the leader of the opposition, as 7 Racecourse Road is the permanent leader of permanent residence of the Prime Minister. I said, thank you for the suggestion and thank you for the compliments. But even when I was minister in Morarji Bhai's government, I chose to remain in my Pandara Park residence. I would not like to shift now. But this is how 10 Janapath has become more important than 7 Racecourse Road. Anyway, I have an objection to this present government's leadership, Congress party's leadership, that it is not merely in terms of who occupies the top post, but even in terms of projecting to the country who are the great men of this country, they are enshackled by that dynastic concept. In the last session, in this session itself, which is when the debate started on the President's address, I initiated from the opposition side, and while speaking on the various issues mentioned in the President's address, I said, I'm surprised when I see this address. I find a number of projects mentioned, a number of schemes proposed, a number of institutions launched. And I'll name the list that I have seen. The list says Indira Gandhi National Tribal University, Indira Gandhi National Old Age Pension Scheme, Rajiv Gandhi National Fellowship, Rajiv Gandhi Institute of Petroleum Technology, Jawaharlal Nehru National Urban Renewal Mission. I said, Mr. Prime Minister, what's this? Even in the matter of nomenclature, you cannot think of any other person, any other leader. 60 years have passed, and this country has produced a Sardar Patel. This country has had a Jayaprakash Narayan. This country has seen Dr. Ram Manohar Lohia, Dr. Shyama Prasad Mukherjee. This country has seen an Anna Durai. This country has seen a Morarji Desai. Not one of these strike you. Only one family, only one dynasty. And addressing Manmohan Singh ji personally, I said, even Narasimha Rao doesn't strike you. As the person who was principally responsible for economic reform, who launched the whole process, who reversed the earlier strategy, and none of them. What is this? What is this? Why so? When you ask me about the difference between the leadership of the BJP and the leadership of the Congress, I can clearly see these differences. We've never had a lifelong president in our party. Several parties have. We never had. In the Congress party, it's a lifelong dynasty, which is there. Even the 6 prime ministers who have been there have been 6 prime ministers from the Congress party in all. 3 of them belong to the same dynasty. And the remaining 3, 2 of them, not very long time, whether it was Shastri and Narasimha Rao, I have already spoken about it. And then the present Prime Minister, as I said again and again, I sometimes pity him. I feel sympathy for him. But it is his own. Otherwise, the office of Prime Minister has authority which is enormous, enormous. There is no lack of authority in that. And contrasting approaches to coalitions also are evident. As I said, Vajpayee also had to deal with a huge coalition. That huge coalition at one point comprised of 24 parties. जिनसे उन्होंने कहा ना रोमांसिंग, naturally वो सब आते हैं, उसमें आते हैं, कोई नहीं, दिक्कत की बात नहीं. I don't feel sorry for that. But at the same time, see what I did. The common minimum program did not include some of the items that we were very particular about. We did not include them. If, after all, I have never shied away from saying that if the party's strength could increase from 2 to 190, to which Prabhu referred, one major factor was our campaign against pseudo-secularism, our campaign to say that crores of people in this country regard a particular place as Ram Janma Bhoomi, at the birthplace of Rama. And if they want to have a temple constructed there, on the basis of records which say that when Babur destroyed that, He destroyed it because it was believed to be the birthplace of Rama and built a mosque over there. And if we want to do it, what's wrong about it? What is there wrong about it? And this was the factor which brought us to power and made us so popular. We said, all right, but a coalition has its compulsions. A coalition can be formed only when there is an agreed program, minimum program. And in agreeing to that program, we left aside that. We left aside our desire to have Article 370 scrapped. We left aside our desire to see a uniform civil code in the country, a requirement or even of the Constitution, only in order to see that a coalition can be formed. And the coalition dharma, this phrase also has been a contribution by our party. Just as he mentioned pseudo-secularism and minorityism and cultural nationalism, coalition dharma required us. We discussed with our allies. I said, suppose for instance on these you do not agree. Are you willing to agree on our program that India must become a nuclear weapon state? One by one, every one of them agreed. He said, this is all right. We have no objection to that. India must have a nuclear deterrent of its own. And when they all agreed, we included that in our common minimum program. We call it the National Agenda of Governance. That was the program in 1998. We did it in March 1998. Within a period of 2 months, we had the Pokhran 2 explosion. And see what it achieved for the whole country. We were criticized by Dr. Manmohan Singh, severely criticized in the Rajya Sabha for having done Pokhran, that Pokhran blast. But I believe that if there are 3 major factors which have made the whole world look towards India with respect, these 3 things during the last 60 years are, number 1, our success as a democracy. Number 2, our abandoning the license permit quota Raj in the early 90s when Narsimha Rao was at the helm of affairs. And number 3, Pokhran 2. I call it Pokhran 2 because Pokhran 1 was done by Indira Gandhi, who abandoned Nehru's approach of using nuclear energy only for peaceful purposes, and who took the first step towards making India a nuclear weapons state. When Mr. Kissinger came to meet me a couple of months back, I told him, I said, he asked me about why we are opposing the present nuclear deal. I explained to him. I said, we are not opposed to having a strategic friendship with America. We started it. But we are opposed to any agreement which says that Indira Gandhi may have done Pokhran 1, Vajpayee may have done Pokhran 2, but hereafter, no government of India must do Pokhran 3. This we cannot accept. This is the price which is being paid today for this in the name of nuclear energy. If this is the price to be paid, my party is not in favor. Strategic partnership, yes. And for strategic partnership and a treaty between equals. But I regard this particular treaty, which is being signed now, as a treaty between unequals. And this unequal treaty is not acceptable to us. Of course, the Communist Party's opposition to the deal is not because it is unequal. It is because it is with America. We should have no friendship with America. We should have no deal with America. This is not our approach. On the one hand, we dealt with our allies in this respect. On the other hand, they have not even mentioned the nuclear treaty in their common minimum program. There is no mention of it. And suddenly, they have taken it up in a manner. The Prime Minister tells a leading paper of Calcutta, put it on the front page. This is non-negotiable. This is final. And if the left doesn't agree with it, let them go where they want to do. And if the government falls, let it fall. This is not the approach. This is not coalition dharma. And particularly when you see that the bulk of the MPs in the House are not in favor of it, why are you pursuing it? Why are you pursuing it? Early morning today, when I was coming to this meeting, a friend, a colleague of mine, phoned me that he had so-and-so from the left met him and conveyed to him that privately the government has told them that we are not pursuing it, don't worry. We are more concerned about seeing that the government lasts the whole term. I don't know. I really do not know, but this is, but Prabhu may find out from further, I don't know. I am only confining myself to the subject that Prabhu Arunji has given to me, namely the difference between the leaders of the leadership of the two parties. Even on the issue of national security, our concern is let the terrorists know that this is a country, this is a leadership where attitude towards terrorism is of zero tolerance, absolutely. After all, see what America has done. Even in America, after 9/11, till today, anyone who goes to the airport, he has to undergo a thorough search. Nothing of that kind happens here. And here, if anything of that kind happens, there'll be a hue and cry. Hijacking hua to kitna shor macha. And officially, the all-party meeting that was held shortly after, they told us first priority should be release of the passengers. Okay. Naturally, government. I'm referring to these as the significant differences between the leaderships of the two parties. And we did not worry when General Musharraf was not agreeable to mentioning that he will stop cross-border terrorism in the joint statement. We said there'll be no statement, no point in having a statement, and so Agra did not succeed. I was criticized for that, though it was a decision taken by the entire cabinet on security, cabinet committee on security. But I was criticized for that. I don't mind it. I didn't mind it. If I said it's the right thing, you don't mention cross-border terrorism, you say that what you call terrorism, what India calls terrorism, is only a freedom fight that is going on in Jammu and Kashmir. We do not agree with it. Only in 2004, when he agreed to that joint statement with Vajpayee ji and came out openly saying that Pakistan will not support any terrorism from within the country, from within Pakistan, or from within any part in our control. It is then alone that dialogue started. Friends, I think I have tried to pinpoint some of the crucial differences, contrasts between the leadership of the Congress party and the leadership of the BJP, and I can certainly say that it is my firm belief that the BJP represents the future of India, whereas the Congress, which was once a common platform of great national leaders, represents of much of what has gone wrong in India's recent past. One last thing that I would like to say is that in leadership qualities, IQ may be important, but EQ, emotional quotient, is even more important. And still more, I would say, moral quotient and spiritual quotient are even more important. And it is in this respect that there is a difference between the leadership of the Congress party and the leadership of the BJP. Thank you.